what you'd like to kind of be promoting is almost just like a higher level of maturity that doesn't get sucked down into this tribalistic fighting that Trump and Harris were doing. But if you start hating on the woke people, then you're kind of you haven't succeeded at going up to that higher level.
That's correct. Mm-hmm. Yes. But so it's just very strange because as we started this conversation, we were both reveling in the idea that we're both like just hyper competitive. And to this day, we still really enjoy going out and competing against our friends in physical races and anything, right? Like in that sense, I have to compete. Mm-hmm. I spend a lot of time racking up wins. I like to rack up wins. It feels great. It's like this intense. It's an intense drive. But then,
totally
in that pursuit, I must defeat others. I must defeat them. And so then I'm like, well, how will I defeat them and then be ultimately inclusive at the same time? Like, this is a paradox if ever one existed, right? This is a total a paradox of consciousness, right? It's like I wonder if what I'm attempting to embody is like, where did that come from? What is this idea of mine? It's some kind of a mashup.
Which idea? The paradox, or
the idea that one can exist without the other. And why does one have to destroy the other? Why can't a new persona emerge that literally can hold both?
Well, right? I think that's the goal. I think that's a goal in many, many things. So usually, I don't think they do coexist. I think most people are more immature, and they either promote competition or they promote equality. I think the people who can actually hold both of them are rare, but I think that's the goal. And let's start with athletics, because that's going to be easier. Imagine an athletic league where you train really hard, your team practices really hard, you go out there, you're fiercely competitive, you try your best to win, and sometimes you defeat the people. Sometimes you're the champion and you defeat all the people. And then now imagine a less mature guy who's like, yeah, we're the fucking best. Everyone else in this league is fucking pussies. They're not as good as us. There's that dude. He's less mature. But then imagine this more mature guy who's like, dude, that season was so great. The competition was so great. We won. We're the best. But I really respect everyone else. I'm really glad they worked really hard. And there were some teams and some people that didn't work that hard. I hope they work harder next year because I really want good competition. And if next year that blue team beats us because they were good, dude, I'll totally respect them. You see how it's like two different levels of consciousness between those two different
Absolutely. People. That was super clear and caused a very slight sense of relief in this person.
Yeah. Okay. Now, well, the important thing I think is if we can use that analogy and put it into politics, and what everyone's fucking doing in politics now is the lower level of maturity. And what's the higher level? It's sort of like we all want the best for our country, and we actually all want the best for our world.
Yes.
And I'm going to study and research, and I think that this ideology is going to be the best way. And I'm really going to try my best to understand that and articulate it and go out and preach my ideology that I think is the best way. But then when this dude preaches a different ideology, I'm going to argue with him and debate with him, but also I'm going to respect him and be like, ooh, he's got some good ideas. Maybe I'll integrate some of his ideas into my philosophy to make mine stronger. And it's possible he's right. And if he is right, I hope he wins because I want what's best for our country.
Yeah.
And nobody's fucking doing that in politics.
That was great. That was really great because it also helps you understand, like, I don't really want China to just be destroyed.
Right.
I don't want our economy to just stomp on theirs because someone told us they're threatening us, right?
Yeah.
I don't want the demise of other peoples. Like,
no.
And I don't think anyone really does unless they get into that, unless they go to this, what you're appropriately deeming is much more immature, right?
Yes.
You go to a much more immature place and it's just like, oh, well, in that place, it's like a kid who has never been instructed to share, right?
Totally.
Like kids, when they're born, they don't share. They have to be instructed. Like kids naturally just take other kids' stuff. And then they're told, oh, no, you have to give that to little Johnny. He's sad now.
Totally.
So then we actually all have to learn this kind of a thing. And so it's really fascinating to see that here we are being reparented in this moment. Yep. And it's like, at least you and I are trying to reparent ourselves in this moment so that we could potentially have a chance to listen to other people's ideas and not have to just be like, that's it, Melanie, I'm not talking to you about this because that's some woke stuff. It's like, no. You might have to have these discussions with your girlfriend. Like, what if your girlfriend is Muslim?
Yep.
Like,
I've had a Muslim girlfriend. I've had a few Muslim girlfriends.
Oh, you have? How do you do that being raised Christian?
Right. It's utterly irrelevant. As you were saying, you had a woke girlfriend and it was utterly irrelevant.
Yeah, so the Muslim woman doesn't make you change how you think or speak, or she didn't make you wear certain things, and you didn't feel compelled to tell her not to say anything.
No, and I didn't force her to eat pigs.
No? Yeah, like, see, I think that's a really good example as well, right? Where in many parts of the world, historically, you would never be allowed to have a Muslim girlfriend.
Totally.
There has been a major advancement in society, in our social stance.
Yep. But
damn, was that a really clear distinction you made. And it was
it's interesting how just the athletic analogy was kind of helpful to illuminate that thing.
Certainly it was for me, right?
Yeah.
Like, and also it helped that you just did literally 1 stage and 2 stage instead of 9 like Wilbur. Like, the 1 stage, 2 stage worked fine, but not in the sense of what I see happening to everyone as we drift towards. I think it's just immature is not the right term, because it's just straight like cognitive distortions. If you get into it really specifically, what is happening to people as they start to look at things as it's all or nothing. It's black or it's white. Actually, like it's the color black or white. It's like it is a catastrophe. It is an endless list of catastrophizing, right? Like these are just some of the most common types of cognitive distortions you see when they freak out and their brains are not functioning properly.
Yeah, totally.
Right? And I don't mean
and people do that in athletics where they like fucking hate the other team. And there's some people that get so into the athletic competition that they fucking hate the other team,
Yeah.
But in politics, that's the norm, not the. In athletics, usually you kind of hate the other team, but it's sort of just a joke. But in politics,
not for Jordan, right? Like in the end, in the end, Jordan in this peak of maturity, his his mentality was still absolutely vilify those who oppose him and destroy them.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I hate to say this, and I don't want this to be true. I don't even want to ask the question, but it does beg the question is, maybe you perform better in athletics if you're at that more primitive level.
Jesus Christ. Well, that is really outrageous, right? And if you think about it, like in war, when you go out, if you are in a way going to have empathy for those who are trying to hurt you,
it's definitely going to make you a worse fighter.
You are not going to be good at killing these guys.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Right?
Okay, so yeah, it's for sure true in war. It's probably also true in athletics, but it feels like politics, it's a different game. You're not actually trying to kill or defeat them. The goal is to make our country great.
Well, and actually the goal is to make it so we stop having wars.
Right.
Like, and I know some people think, oh, it's just human nature. We always have to war. We always have to kill everyone. And it's like, I don't buy that.
Yeah.
And when I think...
Okay, but
yes.
But in politics, the goal, as you're saying, is like to stop having wars and to have everyone like cooperate better, for sure. But in elections, when one person's trying to beat the other person, the goal is to win the most votes and defeat the other person.
Yes.
So you more are going to start resorting to these more fucking guerrilla tactics.
Yes, dude. Yes, and it's totally okay. Like, well, can you imagine trying to win an election with this other kind of a thing where you would have to then this would be a candidate which we've never seen before. One who is like, look at how great my opponent is, right?
Yeah.
Like they basically have almost it all figured out. Like I'm actually somewhat surprised at some of the things they're going to do. That looks great, right? Like, well, you know, if I get assassinated, I hope they're the one who runs the country. And in the meantime, I'm definitely going to run the show. And here's why.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
and as you're saying it, like, how has no candidate ever tried to do that? Jesus Christ.
Dude, don't you think that would just be a slam dunk?
Yes, it absolutely would.
Dude, how are none of their advisors somehow scrolling and finding this pod since only 63 people listen to it now?